Well, waited over a year to see this movie. It was worth it.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Will, and this is going to be my quick review for Black Widow. Yes, the fabled Black Widow movie has finally hit theaters and Disney Plus, which is where I actually watched it this time. Still a little iffy about hitting up the theaters, but eventually I will return to the theaters. This, of course, does star Scarlett Johansson, Rachel Weisz, David Harbour, and Florence Pugh, and picks up between the events of Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War. It kind of has to fit between those two movies because, unfortunately, spoiler alert, Black Widow dies in Avengers Endgame. If you haven't seen Endgame and it's been almost 3 years, how did you avoid spoilers? I need to know that. I gotta admit, I really did like the movie. I enjoyed it. It has all the great Marvel comedy. The character interactions were fantastic. I really liked Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh's characters of Natasha and Yelena and their sort of interaction and chemistry. This movie definitely feels like it should have came out in Phase 3. Of course, this is the start of Marvel's Phase 4, which has kind of gotten a jump start thanks to Disney Plus, where Disney Plus is very much leading the charge in terms of the storytelling. This really does feel more so like a movie that should have happened a while ago. It's a good mid-tier Marvel movie. I wouldn't say it's like top tier, but it's actually good. The story does focus about Natasha reuniting with her Russian quote-unquote family to try to take down the Red Room. We really get a lot of in-depth looks at Natasha's backstory, her past, some of the events and things that have been hinted at throughout all of the movies that she has been in. We got to go to Budapest. We got a little bit more about her time in the Red Room and the Black Widow program. Dreykov's daughter was a very big part of the movie. So I really like those elements of the story. The story itself is pretty straightforward. It's really tying up all of the characters' loose ends. Since we do know that Black Widow, at least Natasha Romanoff's Black Widow, is not necessarily returning to the MCU, this was really kind of her swan song. Watching the movie, knowing all that information, kind of leaves the stakes super low. It really does, because we know eventually where the character ends up. And that's kind of the issue that I have with certain prequel movies about characters that we've already spent so much time with. We already know where this character's ending is. And this is really more so about Yelena's character becoming more of a mainstay in the MCU. It's transferring the mantle from Natasha to Yelena for Black Widow. I did like the action. The action in most Marvel movies is really good. This movie really felt like it had the style of like a Bourne Identity. That sort of close hand-to-hand combat, really brutal shots and combat, which surprisingly worked really well, and it's always worked well with the Black Widow character. Again, it's one of those things with this movie where it feels like it should have been a Phase 3 movie. If it came out in Phase 3, would it have had more of an impact on her death? This really felt like more of if you've invested time in all of the movies with the character in it, you're really going to appreciate and enjoy a lot of stuff. There's a lot of jokes between Natasha and Yelena, especially with Natasha being an Avenger and being a superhero. And at one point she makes jokes about her posing, like, why do you do the pose thing where you're like, I'm not trying to dab. But, when you're landing and you flip the hair back, it's funny. Like, I cracked up when that joke came on screen. I love David Harbour's Red Guardian. He was funny. He was kind of the comedy relief of the entire movie. He is the Russian equivalent to Captain America, and they really play into his jealousy of Steve Rogers and why he didn't get the same sort of fame and stuff that Captain America did. It was a funny take on the character, and I really enjoyed his portrayal of it. It was really entertaining to watch. One of the downsides for the movie, I will say, was Taskmaster. Taskmaster in the comics, he is a villain who can copy the movements of any person that he sees. Basically, he becomes like a super dangerous assassin. And the movie does an interesting twist with it, which works for the story. but it kind of, for me, it kind of let down the character, because I think that character might have had more mileage on him, potentially. Who knows? They may show back up, you know, based off of the ending of the movie, but I felt a little let down by the antagonist and the portrayal of Taskmaster. It works for the story that they're telling, though, so I'm not going to say it's a bad take on it. It just, for myself personally, it didn't hit the mark. Like I said, the action was really great. Of course, it has the really good Marvel humor. It didn't feel forced. It actually felt genuine. I'm glad we got this sort of proper send-off for the Natasha Romanoff character, because we know Black Widow will continue in the MCU. The Black Widow moniker is kind of what all of the assassins in the Red Room were named after. So the likely scenario that Yelena will pick up the mantle of Black Widow, especially based off of what we see in the post-credit scene, which I'm not really going to get into a spoiler with this video, but definitely make sure you stick around to the ending. It is heavily going to feed into not necessarily the next Marvel movie, but potentially the next Marvel series that's going to be on Disney+. Overall, I think Black Widow was a good mid-tier Marvel movie. It wasn't necessarily the super big bombastic one. Of course, it has a big Act 3, which... Did you need the big Act 3? I mean, in terms of the location, the action, the characters, everything involved with it were great. I don't know if you needed it to be at the location that it was, but overall it works for the movie. I think the story worked for the character. It's a good way to wrap up the loose ends that were left hanging, no pun intended, when Natasha died. And it feeds nicely into what we got with Infinity War Endgame. It tied up all the little loose ends. It gives us a little bit of the in-between between when we saw her in Civil War and when we first meet back up with her in Infinity War. I still think it should have been a Phase 3 movie, but again, I digress. It's still a fun movie to watch. I highly recommend checking it out. It's a good movie to check out in theaters if you have the opportunity, or if you feel comfortable going back to the movies and checking it out. I think it's a good way to kick off Phase 4, but it really does feel kind of like a bookend to Phase 3. That is my quick review for Black Widow. Hopefully you've had a chance to see it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Try to keep it spoiler free. I just wanted to keep this one spoiler free as best as possible. If you'd like me to do a quick spoiler discussion on the movie, let me know in the comments. I'm totally willing to take a few extra minutes to talk spoilers if you'd like, or give you a little bit more of my spoilery thoughts on the movie. But hopefully you do check out the movie. And as always, thank you so much for watching this and all of my videos. I really do appreciate it. If you do enjoy this type of stuff that I do, the reviews, the reactions, the gaming, anything like that, feel free to subscribe to the channel. It would really help me out and make me feel oh so good. You can follow me on all the social media that's listed at the end of the video. Like, share, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And as always, until next time, I'll catch you later. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you did like this video, why not give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends? You can subscribe to the channel by clicking on my gorgeous little face right over there. You can follow me on all the various social media platforms right below. And last but certainly not least, if you've got a few extra minutes, why not check out one of the lovely videos floating right over here. Later.